could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Jason Roberts. He is a national speaker, a peak performance coach, and a business growth expert. Hello, Jason. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Hello. And let's start a conversation with diving into your journey of becoming the person you are today. So, what kind of inspired you to come to this way of expressing yourself through your businesses and to becoming a mentor to those who wish to create their own business? So, what was the turning point in your career and the life back in when it happened?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things. One is, I grew up in a small farm town, and my mom and dad got a divorce when I was 12. I have two younger brothers, and my dad kind of just bailed. Like, we came home from school one day and the house was empty and he was gone, and he didn't pay child support. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and it was tough. I watched her sacrifice and struggle every single day so that my brothers and I could wear name brand clothes to school, and we could have as happy of an existence as we could with the little bit that she had. And from a young age, like, that really, like, it really bothered me to see, like, she wouldn't buy clothes for herself. She wouldn't buy anything for herself. She just completely sacrificed everything for us. And so at a young, like, I didn't have any entrepreneur role models. I didn't have any business people in my life. We didn't grow up like that. But what did happen through that is that it it gave me a drive to, like, do anything that I could to generate an income that would take some of that burden off of her. And even as a young kid, if I could get a part-time job, if anything that I could do to bring some money in, that was less money that she had to figure out, how to come up with. So I think, like, that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial drive, was like, what you focus on is what you feel, or what you focus on is what you find. And so I was focused on, like, how can I take some of this burden off of her? So I think that's what really kind of got me started into, like, looking for ways or opportunities to bring in income. And when you're looking for them, you tend to find them. Second part of that, though, is, like, I never anticipated being a teacher. I never anticipated traveling around the country and speaking and doing, I would have never, ever told you that was going to be my future. But one of my mentors early on in the real estate space asked me, he was doing an event in St. Louis, 300 or 400 people, and he asked me to get on stage and teach what I was doing to be successful in my own business to my own competition in my own backyard. And I originally told him no. And I was like, no, why would I ever do that? And he said, well, I guess you can choose to have a scarcity mindset, or you can choose to have an abundance mindset. And you're clearly choosing scarcity. So good luck with that. And he kind of hung up. And so I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and I'm like, you know what? Because I am an abundance mindset person. Like, I do want to help. I do want to create positive change. And so I agreed to do it. I wasn't happy about it. I gave a couple-hour presentation, and when I got off stage, there was a big line of people to talk to me. And the very first guy that came up, and this, like, still gives me chills to this day, he said, I contemplated and almost committed suicide yesterday. I got wiped out in 2007 through 2010. I went from being a multimillionaire to homeless when the market collapsed. And I shared that story from the front of the room, and he said, I'm exactly where you were several years ago right now, and it feels like there's no way out. And your presentation today gave me hope, and that hope took away all the feelings of feeling like I couldn't escape this, and, like, if you can do it, I can do it. And that was the first time ever in my life that I really felt, like, clear on why God put me on this earth. I'm not trying to preach. I'm just saying, like, for me, I felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, creating businesses is great, making money is great, but, like, you can have all the money in the world and not be fulfilled and not be internally happy. And that was, like, the first time where I felt like I really made a difference in somebody's life. And it was that moment that really, at least on the coaching, consulting, helping people grow side, it became crystal clear that, like, this is what I'm supposed to do with part of my time here.
Wow, that's incredible. And especially those stories of inspiration for people who really going through the same experiences as we once were. We usually best positioned to help those who would help us
That's
back
right.
then, but now with more, I would say, wisdom and with more understanding of how we went through what we went through and what we see on the other side of it, what kind of lesson we learned and how we became stronger through that
Right.
experience. That what helps us, equip us to help those who are still in the same position. And I think it's the best example of how you as a speaker could inspire those who are dealing with such hard times in their lives. And also it took courage for you to go on the stage in the first place, to be able to open up, to share your experiences. And I think it's something that we have to kind of become comfortable with, being vulnerable, being open, sharing our stories. And because we don't know in the end of the day if how many people we could touch with that, how many people we can help with what was for us perhaps something painful, but now looking back, we know why it happened. We know, like you said, it's your mission, right? So
Right.
why you didn't know back then. So now looking back, you understand. And I just want to see your perspective on what do you think about being vulnerable and being open and sharing your story, and how it could help a person to become a successful entrepreneur and a business owner as well.
That's a great question, and I think like I don't want to say for men specifically, but I think it was at least instilled into me that like your job as a man is to work and provide. We don't talk about our feelings, we don't cry about our like we don't you don't do that. You get up, you work, you provide, you do that, and I think there's merit in that. Like I think parts of that are very true. I do feel like it's my job to provide. At the same time, though, like I also considered vulnerability as a weakness. And so like at least it was kind of instilled in me like that's not what we do. I mean, I got in trouble for crying as a kid from my dad, and so it wasn't like something that we were supposed to do. And I remember prior to giving that presentation, I joined this mastermind with the mentor that I talked about. And I remember we would meet 3 times a year for 3 days, and everybody would have an hour to talk about what's going on in their life and business that they're trying to grow, fix, accomplish, make better, whatever it is. And after the third time we met, my coach came to me and he said, "You realize that you've been here 3 times now and you've never shared one thing personal. All you've ever talked about is business. You've never talked about anything in your personal life." And that's when it hit me, and like that I'm not being vulnerable. Like if I want life to change, I have to change. And if I keep doing the same thing that I've always done, I'm going to keep getting what I always got. And that was kind of like I have to be honest. I have to be vulnerable. I have to be transparent. It's the only way we grow. And that was kind of hard for me in the beginning because I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say that it was ego. I never felt like that. I just didn't feel like that's what I was supposed to do. I didn't feel like I was supposed to uh, whine or complain. I didn't feel like I was supposed to share my failures. And I can tell you, like you just said, some of the most painful things that I've ever been through in my life, like super dark, painful times, were exactly what I was supposed to go through. Had I not gone through them, I wouldn't have had the growth. I wouldn't be able to help the people that I'm able to help. So I think vulnerability is a super important thing, and it's okay. The only reason that I'm able to talk in front of thousands of people, the only reason that I've built successful businesses is just because I've made more mistakes than most other people. I've screwed
Mm.
stuff up more than other people, and I've learned from those mistakes. And you know, when painful things happen, you tend to not do them again because it's like kind of like the hand on the frying pan. So I think that I think vulnerability is super important to growth in anything, to growth in a personal relationship, to growth in business, to growth with your family, and with yourself.
Right. And when we're vulnerable, we are being honest with how
Right.
we feel, with where we at, of what's going on in our life, and we're willing to speak up. So the more we suppress, the more we hide, the more we avoid those unpleasant emotions that come up with certain events, situation, experiences, the more we shut down and not letting ourselves to step into the power that we hold, each one of us, we have our own unique abilities, skills that we can be of service to other people. But how can we establish that relationship, that connection, that service if we are not true to ourselves? So we have to honor that first. And that comes with the courage to be able to open up, to be vulnerable. So if we look at it not as a weakness, but as a strength,
Great. Yeah.
that's how we flip that. And that would be beneficial not only to us, but for others as well. And we want to see everybody being in their power, not hiding. And I think you're doing a great job with inspiring others and mentoring them. And I know you're a high performance coach, life and business coach. So what are the most important, I would say, aspects or pillars that your coaching career stand upon? What are the values that you think a high performer should possess or, practice on a daily basis to achieve a really high standard life or the life of their dreams, I would say?
Yeah. So I'll tell you that from my own experience, the cool part about I've been an entrepreneur for 24 years. I've built 11 companies, 10 multi-million-dollar companies, 10 companies that did over $1 million in revenue the first year in business. And I'm not saying, hey, look at me. I'm saying that when you do that, you start to see patterns. You start to see, there's a reason why 90% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. And it's also the same reason that 80 or 90% of New Year's resolutions are given up on by the end of January. There's patterns of success and there's patterns of failure. And I don't mean failure like you're done. I just mean that there's things that you can do that cause incredible results. And then there's things that you can do that don't. And most of the time we don't know what those things are until you've spent 24 years screwing it up enough times that you start to eventually develop the pattern. Well, I don't have any business degree. I didn't go to college. I didn't have, role models in my world that taught me this stuff. Like, I learned the hard way. What I also learned is that I can model the operational system that other people that are having success in the area that I'm trying to have success in. If I just do what they do, like, if you want to be a national championship bodybuilder, you can go to a million seminars and read books and do all this kind of stuff, or you can find somebody that won a national championship and you can eat what they eat and lift what they lift and wake up when they wake up and model, the format of people who've achieved success before you. One thing that I will say, I think that 80% of success in anything is psychological and 20% is mechanics. And don't get me wrong, the right mechanics will get you to the finish line much faster. And I go into businesses that, are at $1 million a year and they want to get to 3 million. And there is a big mechanics piece in getting them there faster. But what I can tell you from every successful person that I've studied in my entire life, there's one thing that they almost, the 1% of 1% of income earners in the world seem to have in common. And that is the ability to manage and control their own state, their own state of being, like how we show up, right? And there's 3 things that control your state. And so I want everybody to kind of think about this. The first one is what you focus on. What you focus on is what you feel, right? So start paying attention to your day-to-day life. Like, what are my patterns of focus? What do I tend to focus on the most? Am I focusing on good, or am I focusing on fear? Am I focusing on lack? Am I focusing on, the problems or the issues? The second thing is the meaning that you give it. So what you focus on first, and then second is the meaning that you give it. None of us, I don't think any of us really experience reality as it actually is. We experience the map of the world that we've created through our past experiences. That's why 2 people can witness the exact same thing and have drastically different opinions of what happened. I watched this Oprah episode where she interviewed 2 biological twins that were raised in the same house. It was really cool. And the interview starts with her in prison, right? And she's interviewing this guy in prison and she's asking him questions, and she finally gets to this question and she says, if there was one reason that you would attribute to you you've spent your entire life in and out of prison, you've got 13 felon, all this bad stuff, no family, no relationships, no nothing, you're in and out of prison your whole life. What's the one thing that you would say is most responsible for that? And he goes, I know exactly what it is, Oprah. I was raised with an abusive father. He was physically and emotionally abusive to me. He beat my mom. He was an alcoholic. He was just a real terrible person. And I'm a product of my environment. This is why I've done all the bad that I've done, because that's what I learned. That's who I am. That's what I know. And as you're watching it, you're kind of like, that makes sense. I mean, he had a horrific upbringing, and it made sense why that, like, you could wrap your mind around it. But then the crazy part was, so that interview ends, and then it pans to her driving up this big windy driveway in this SUV, Oprah in the SUV, going up to this mansion, and the gates open, and she goes in and she sits down, and now she's sitting down with this guy who looks exactly the same as the other guy, because you don't know yet. Well, she introduces him. He's the biological twin of the other one. And he's got a wife and 3 kids, and he's happy, and he's got all this good, and he has different businesses, and he's different charities, and all this good that he's doing in the world. And so she interviews him for a little bit. Then she asks him the same question, and she says, if there was one thing that you would attribute to your success, your happiness, your beautiful family, all those things, what would it be? And he gave the exact same answer. He said, I was raised in a house with an abusive father. He was an alcoholic. He physically and emotionally abused me and my mom. He gave the exact same answer. And so the power of that is they both experienced the same thing, but the meaning that he gave it, the meaning that the guy in good shape gave it, was that I will never recreate this. I'll never repeat it. I'm going to be better than this. I'm going to create change. I'm going to love instead of hate. I'm going to do instead of take. You know what I mean? Like, he gave it a totally different meaning. And because he gave that experience a different meaning, he created a drastically different life. And so I really try to, one of the first things I do is, like, what are we focusing on? What is the meaning that we give it? And then the third thing is, what action are we taking because of it? And those 3 things have, they control our destiny. They control every decision that we make. They control our destiny. And so, we get the choice. We get the choice when somebody cuts us off into traffic, what meaning we give that. It's easy to get mad, but that's a conditioned response. Like, we get to choose the meaning that we give it. What if the person that cut you off in traffic was rushing to the hospital because a family member just got in a car accident? We wouldn't be mad then, but we don't even know, And so I think that just shows up. Didn't mean to go super long on that, but I think I think it's so important to pay attention. What are we focusing on? What is the meaning that we're giving it? And how do we give it a more empowering meaning? How do we give it a more beneficial meaning? Because we all experience pain, we all experience hardship. But if we take that and say, what good is this? What can I learn from this? What is a more empowering way to view this situation? It changes our whole path.
Wow. Yes. And I love this that you mentioned about the interview Oprah gave. And I think it shows really clear that we are in control of how we respond to certain circumstances and experiences in our life, and how we could interact with people without being triggered, because this is what conditioning, it happened in everybody's life. You have certain patterns that you repeat, but you usually do it on autopilot, unconsciously, right? Automatically. This is how you react. But to respond consciously, it takes more awareness. You have to be present. You have to understand that, again, life's happening for you, for your own benefit. In every circumstance, you can find the silver lining, right? So the meaning that you give, it's all up to you. Everything that's happening is actually meaningless unless you give it a meaning. It's just what is. If you can accept it, what is, and see the positive side of it, because in everything there is positive and negative. It's always a duality, a polarity of things. If we understand that and being more aware, this is how we can liberate ourselves from being that reactive person that we used to be in the past. But I think the most important part is how to become aware, how to come to this present moment and see for what it is. because this is how we are being lost in our thinking pattern and our negative thinking, critical about who we are, our stories of the past, our traumas. We tend to identify ourselves with what happened. We are
You're
not defined by our own past, but this is how we feel. So
you're
what do you think about it?
you're exactly, no, I mean, like everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my gosh, she gets it. Because it's our subconscious has 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. Over 90% of them are the exact same thoughts we had yesterday and the day before. And guess what? They're not good thoughts. You know what I mean? They're not positive. Our brain wasn't designed to help us grow, to create a business, to strive for. Our brain was designed to like protect us from harm, protect us from fear. So its main focus is constantly to keep us in this little bubble called our comfort zone. And no growth happens there. You know, if we're not growing, we're dying. And but yet our mind is programmed to do that. But the important part is knowing that like we can control that. If you can learn how to harness that, if you can learn how to control it, and you nailed it with your beliefs and your identity and all that, you know, if you're struggling to lose 20 pounds, it's not because you don't know how. It's not because you don't, it's not because there's a shortage of information or tools out there, right? I mean, there's 1,000 different diets and programs. It's all free. We can access it on the internet now. It's not because of that. It's because there's some internal conflict, and that internal conflict is exactly what you said, Anna. It's your beliefs. It's not that you're not losing the 20 pounds because you don't know what to do. You're not losing it because you don't yet believe that you're the person that's 20 pounds skinnier. If you believed that you were that person, you would behave how that person believes, because that's what our subconscious does. It keeps us in alignment with who we believe we are from an identity standpoint. And if I can teach you how to shift your identity to believe you're this thing, you know, same with business owners. I work a lot with solopreneurs that are trying to transfer into entrepreneur, you know, guys and gals that are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and they may have a very successful business, but they're chained to it. You know what I mean? They're sacrificing their relationships with their spouse. They're sacrificing missing their kids' games. They're chained to this business, and it's not because they don't know how to do it. It's because their identity is so ingrained with who they are right now. I have to have them shift. I just had a client. He owns a construction company in Texas, and it's causing problems in his marriage. It's causing problems in all different areas of his life. He's doing well financially, but other things are suffering. And he said, I just can't seem to make the transition. Like I'm doing everything. And so I had him, I did this whole process with him, but part of it was identifying the current beliefs that he has that's the cause for keeping him where he is, right? And then we created a whole new set of beliefs. Like, I own a multi-million-dollar construction company. I work less than 20 hours per week. I have a brilliant team that shows up and knocks things out, like all these things. And he just sent me a text like 2 days ago and said, it was this big long list, and he had like 70% of it highlighted. And he said, I've been working with you for less than 60 days. Everything I wrote on this, I didn't believe a single thing was possible when you had me do this exercise. I didn't believe any of it was possible. It's been less than 60 days, and almost 70% of it has already come true. Things that I haven't been able to accomplish in years. And it wasn't because I'm this super brilliant person. It was because he reprogrammed his subconscious. He restructured his beliefs around who he was and how he shows up and what he is. And as soon as his subconscious started to adopt, this is our new operating system, it started making different decisions. It started taking different actions. It started seeing the world through a different lens. And when that happens, we can create change in 90 days that we couldn't change in the last 3 years. And it's such a cool experience. And you nailed all of it.
Wow. Yes, and I think for us to really reflect on what are the beliefs that we have about ourselves, why are we doing what we're doing at
Right.
this present moment? Sometimes we just run on autopilot. We don't stop. We don't
Exactly.
question. We just take it as if this is who we are. And for us, it feels natural, but that's just because we think that's who we are. But is it really what you want? Do you want to continue with the same? Or if you realize that you can change your beliefs and recreate who you are, and now you can get a life that you want or you desire or you aspire for. But yes, it's important to really reflect on a daily basis and see what are the thoughts that are coming up, what are the decisions that I'm making, because your subconscious is what rules your life, what's, the reason you're making the decisions in your life, and that's very important to address. And it's not easy to change, but everything is, kind of like comes back to your uh, willingness to change, because not everybody is ready for change.
That's right.
And they so attached to their past, to their identity, they're not willing to step out of that comfort zone, because it will require you to embrace change, to embrace unknown, to be uncomfortable for a while until it becomes your second nature, right? But it'll take time. Habits. How long does it take to create a new habit, right? So
That's
it's
right.
not overnight.
That's right.
Yes. And I think if we are really in control of what we want, we know exactly where we're heading. We have to have some kind of like GPS system, not just running on autopilot, but
Right.
have some kind of goals,
A vision,
short-term,
right?
long-term vision, and knowing the steps that we're going to take. It's not just talking about it. You have to create the action list.
That's
And
right.
I think that's something also missing, because without taking the steps, nothing will happen. Again, life will course correct you as you go, but you have to show life that you are that person that's willing to take that step.
That's right. People used
Don't
to
you
say,
think?
yeah,
Yeah.
people used to say knowledge is power. And, I teach a part on this from stage, and it's like, I don't necessarily disagree. Like, it's not completely incorrect, but I think knowledge plus action equals power. You can, I can take somebody that has a quarter of the knowledge that someone does in a certain area of business or life or whatever. I can take somebody with very little knowledge, but a ton of action, and they'll get results a million times faster than somebody with all the knowledge and little action. And I think we got to think about that too. So we're kind of indoctrinated that education is important. And don't get me wrong, like it is, but you can read as many books as you want about how to swim. You can go to as many seminars and trainings you want on how to swim. You can watch videos on how to swim, but
Mhm.
you don't learn to swim until you jump in the pool. Like that's when you actually learn. And until that point, you're not going to learn. I learned I can fly a helicopter, and when I first went to my very first lesson, they said there was 20 hours of ground school and then there's 40 hours of pilot training. I assumed in my brain, like, we start with ground school, right? Like, you learn
Yeah.
how everything works. And the guy has me get in, and he tells me to put my right hand here, my left hand here. He picks it up, takes it over this practice area, and he says, put your right hand here, put your left hand here, put your right foot here, put your left foot here. And then he lifts his hands up and he says, okay, the controls are yours. I haven't been in this thing for 5 minutes, and I freak out and I throw my hands up in the air and I'm like, no, the controls are yours. And the thing dips down and he grabs it and picks it back up. But in 7 lessons, in 7 hours of actually taking action, I could fly it by myself. I could do ground school for 2 years and not be able to control that thing when I first get in it. You know what I mean? And so, like, they're both important, but we have to condition ourselves to act. We have to condition ourselves to take massive action in the areas that we want to change.
Definitely. And I think also we have to understand, again, our mind plays tricks on us. It creates
Right.
worst case scenario, right? We're
Exactly what it is.
afraid of failure. We think, what if? We look at those stories of people failing or listen to people who are not successful, and then we believe it will happen to us too, right? And we avoid taking any action. We procrastinate, we come up
Right.
with excuses. Why not?
Yep.
But what if it's gonna turn out just better than you expected? We never
Right.
think about it. Why
Right.
is that?
Yeah. How would you act if you knew for sure that you were going to get what you set out to get? You'd show up differently. We all, fear is a primary driver for all of us. Fear of failure, fear of not looking good, fear of loss, fear of all these different things. You know, it's all a map in our mind. And yeah, what I didn't tell you about the helicopter lesson is my very first lesson. And I'm not like a scared of things guy. Like I'll skydive, I'll try crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But after that first lesson, I got in my truck and I had a migraine headache. I was so stressed out. And I was sitting in my truck after that first lesson, and I caught my own self chanting to myself. Like I was sitting there saying, I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. Like I was actively saying it, and I caught myself and I was like, this is crazy. And then in that moment, one of my early mentors, one of the things that I adopted into my life that's been such a game changer is the saying or the advice or the phrase, if I can't, I must. And condition yourself that anytime there's something that doesn't feel right, turn straight into it and condition yourself. No, I'm in control of you. You're not in control of me. This mind is not going to dictate to me what is safe or unsafe, what is fear-based or is unfear-based. I'm going to control it. I'm going to command it what to do. Now that's not fun and it doesn't feel good in the beginning. And as soon as that came in my mind, I'm like, dang it. I knew what I had to do. And so I walked back into the place and I scheduled my second lesson. And the deal I made with myself was I don't have to fulfill this all the way until I become a pilot if I don't want to. But what I can't do is quit because I'm scared. So the deal is you keep going to lessons until you're no longer afraid of it. Once you're no longer afraid of it, if you don't want to do it anymore, then I can quit. But I can't quit because I'm afraid. I can't give up because I'm afraid. And like I said, I was petrified the first 6 lessons. On the 7th lesson, I could fly it. And when I could fly it, I was like, this is the coolest thing on the earth. You know, like I went from this place of like, I want nothing to do with this because of fear.
Yes.
When in reality, like, how cool is it that you can fly a helicopter and go wherever you want? Like, you know, and think about that in so many different other areas of life. Like we try something and there's a little fear around it and we don't get the reward because we let our subconscious mind control what's not even really real. I mean, come on, anybody, you can do anything for 7 hours. You can go to any lesson 7 times to learn something. Where are we quitting after one in life, you know?
Yes. And with us, really have that belief in ourselves, in our abilities. Like you said, if you can, you must, right?
That's right.
We are all capable of doing that. How come we don't see our ability? How come we don't give ourselves credit for trying? We should see first what we can do. And once we start taking that steps, it will create evidence for us and it would fuel our self-confidence. And this is how confidence is built, with you first showing yourself what you can.
Exactly right.
And a
And when
lot of people are lost in their minds, really preventing themselves from taking that first step. And again, like, it's going to become easier as you go, but it's hard to start.
Exactly right. It can be hard to start. But you also nailed the point of like, when I believe that I can do something, I do it and it works.
Yeah.
And when I believe that I can't, it doesn't. And so it seems crazy. Like I have to win first before I can believe that I'm capable of winning. Whereas when you really start to learn how to control your mind and command it what to do, you realize that you decide to win first. And because you decided to win, you do. And you know what I mean? It's backwards. And so that comes back to that identity thing. I had, by luck and a lot of hard work, I had success in my very first business that I opened when I was 21. And that created the map for me that when I try something, it works. And so it became very easy for me to continue to do it because like you said, I had this proof, I had this evidence. My advice would be that you don't have to wait until you have the proof or evidence. You can, and because of that, I succeeded 9 other times in a row where 90% of new businesses fail. Like I didn't fall into that category because I didn't believe that I was going to. And so like if we can condition that belief system, we can start to get significantly different results. And there's very predictable ways to do that.
Yes, definitely. And I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Me
Thank
too.
you for sharing your thoughts and wisdom. And for those who would like to connect with you online, how can they find you?
So one thing that I want to give something of value to your audience. I have a 16-week training. It's expensive that I take people through, business owners, entrepreneurs, people that aren't even business owners that just want to create positive change in their life in areas that they've been stuck on for years. And I want to create massive results. I want to collapse timelines fast. So I have this 16-week thing I take people through. Not everybody can afford it. It's kind of expensive. So I took that and I condensed it down into 3 hours and gave the key points. It's an absolute game changer. I want to give it to your audience at absolutely no cost. There's no tricks. There's nothing to buy down the road. I just want to give it to you as a gift. You can go to www.ultimatesuccessblueprint.com and just put your information in, and my system will automatically email you. It's 7 days of training. It's 6 different modules. It's an absolute game changer. I just really encourage everybody. I know this stuff can sound hokey to people sometimes. I promise you it's not hokey. I promise you that give it a try. If what you're doing right now isn't working, give it a try and see what kind of difference it makes. You can find me. I'm at www.jasonroberts.tv or on social media, Facebook or Instagram, Coach Jason Roberts. Shouldn't be hard to find. Thank you so much, Anna, for letting me share and give. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody listening did as well.
Yes, thank you. And I'm also going to add it to the show notes as well.
Thank you.
And as we close today, what would be the thought for our listeners?
Wow. I think one of the most important things, I mean, it was kind of the whole subject of today's conversation is beliefs. Take a few minutes and really look at what beliefs, because you probably don't even realize that they're there. Like, these are subconscious things, but like, what beliefs do you have around all the different things? Just kind of take a mental note going forward throughout the day of when things happen and how you respond to them, and why you're responding because of prior beliefs. And like, ask yourself the question, what if I could change this in a different way? How could life be different? How could life be better? How could life drastically change in a positive way? And then make it happen, and let us know how we can help you do that.
Thank you so much. I hope
Yeah,
you enjoy your
thank you.
day. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.